Thanks very much for joining us for our webinar today, which is Utilizing a Pandemic to Achieve More for Your Business, presented by Ronan Consulting. My name is Allison Mitchell, and I'm part of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce team. Before we start our webinar, there are a few housekeeping items that I would like to share. Your microphones should be muted, but if you could please double check that to reduce background noise, we would appreciate it. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, and you can do so by typing your questions into the questions box in the control panel. At the end of our presentation, then our presenter will be answering those questions. And after the webinar, all registrants will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the webinar recording. Our presenter today is Kris Ronan from Ronan Consulting. Kris is a local sales and marketing expert who over his career has worked with a variety of different companies in a variety of different industries. This experience has landed Kris at Conestoga College's Center for Entrepreneurship, where he is a venture coach as well as launching his own consulting business, Ronan Consulting. Kris also has been an active chamber member for many years and currently serves on the board of directors. I would now like to invite Kris to begin his presentation.
Good day, everyone. I've got to say, having done many of these over the years, it's weird not being able to see you, but I will let you see me for a little bit. I just want to thank you all for joining today. We're going to kind of go through some very high-level things that will hopefully help you achieve more within your business. Some planning things. I know we're all kind of in this weird spot together, where we were busy, we were doing things, we were going about our business as usual, and then we're told to stop, which came as a shock to many and put a lot of people in a lot of tough situations. So hopefully we can get some value out of this today in ways that we might be able to continue to engage and connect with our customers and do some planning things to help bring some success for your business and keep us moving forward. So the agenda for today is I want to kind of give you some of these tips, tricks. We'll go through the slide deck, but also I want to spend some time, and if people do have questions, to get a little bit more tactical with your business and get some examples and some real world takeaways that you might have or want from this, whether it be from the content itself or questions that you might have regarding your sales or your marketing. We'll have time at the end for sure to address those. So diving into it, thank you for that introduction, Allison. As we go through, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff I've done over the course of my career. A lot of it is all through sales and marketing. I mean, in my spare time, I spend a lot of time fishing. I consider myself to be a business geek. So I spend a lot of time talking business. My role at Conestoga allows me to nurture and grow either alumni or students that come to us with business ideas. So all of this is very much timely, as no matter where I go and what I'm doing and who I'm speaking to, there are a lot of people that are in the exact same boat, all wondering what we can be doing to move forward. So I'm just going to stop my webcam now, and we'll kind of dive into it. So I want to lay the groundwork for what's happening now as well. And I'm classifying this, of course, but maybe. Let me be clear. I said before that, you know, there's that gift of time that people have right now, but I know that's not the case for everybody. This is a hard spot for a lot of folks. For the first time in a long time, not only are we managing different hats as entrepreneurs, as you know, people working within a business, we've now been forced to become teachers, spending more time at home, disconnected from friends, family. So I know that time isn't always a thing that people have. So I wanted to preface that and be respectful to say that I know a lot of people aren't home sitting, twiddling their thumbs, looking for stuff to do. But I took a look at, and when I was asked to do this presentation, I took a hard look at some of the things that I've heard before. And speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs, I hear, and I've actually built my business out of hearing things like, I wish I could, I should be doing, if I had more time, and I wish. And a lot of those things were prefaced or were followed by tasks or goals or different projects that people wanted to do around creating more revenue or adjusting their marketing and attracting more people. And so as we're going through this presentation and me talking about, of course, I understand that not everybody has the time, but maybe this is that opportunity that some people have been looking for. Maybe there's a blessing in disguise where we've been forced to say that, you know, that term busy that a lot of people almost wear as a badge of honor is now stripped from us, and whether we like it or not. And maybe now is the time to be able to take that step back and put some time in planning on your business and planning on your marketing and pivoting and creating some potential new revenue streams for your business to either keep afloat, to move the needle forward, or to accomplish some of those things that have been on the back burner for a long time. When I talk to business owners and different things like different people like that, I typically will share the story and the analogy of finding your way and setting goals. So let's pretend for a moment that I said there was $25,000 waiting for you at a park in Vancouver. Now, someone like myself who's traveled the entire length of the Trans-Canada Highway, I mean, in theory, I know I'm going to be able to get there. If I said, you know, can you get there by Saturday, or actually let's call it Thursday, there's a set prescription that you can follow to get there. And a lot of people have tools and rely on tools that say that they're going to use GPS, they're going to ask friends, they're going to pull out maps. But let's pretend none of that existed. For you, there's $25,000 waiting there. You have to get there by Thursday. You're not allowed to use a map. You're not allowed to ask for help, and you're not allowed to use GPS. How many people actually think that they're going to hit their goals? This is typically where I would get a show of hands in a seminar, but I don't have that luxury. I'm assuming some of you maybe will raise your hand if you've done it before. But if you've never done it before and you don't have a plan and you don't have a roadmap, your chances of getting that $25,000 by the time it expires are pretty much zero. Again, unless you've done it, I can almost guarantee you, without luck, that you're going to be able to hit your goals, or find that money. So the reason why I'm telling this story and why I'm bringing this up is when I talk to a lot of people regarding their marketing, their communication strategy, some of their sales strategy. For a lot of folks, they said, well, I've always done it this way. I've done it before. I've seen how it's done, or I'm utilizing help to be able to accomplish their sales and marketing goals, but they don't often have a roadmap or a game plan. This is where the beauty of this time and that gift and that forced step back before we can step forward comes in from my perspective. So the one question that you have to ask yourself as you're getting into this and figuring out, you know, am I going to build a communication strategy? How am I marketing? What am I doing? Is why are you doing this? You know, again, without having the luxury of crowd interaction here, but the vast majority of people are kind of, you know, not setting goals for themselves. They know where they want to be, but they don't know how to get there, and they don't have a roadmap as to how to do it. So asking yourself, why am I doing this, and what tools are important to me? What am I utilizing today that, you know, can be carried forward, and what am I not doing that we can implement tomorrow to bring success down the road? So I want to add a couple caveats to this as well. I'm going to share with you some different things and different tools as we go through, but I want to be very clear about a few things. Number one, if you don't know where you're going and you don't have a SMART goal, you're never going to get there, period. That example I showed kind of exemplifies that. But how can you ever expect to get to where you're going if you don't know where that is? Number two, I want to be clear that everything I'm about to say is not a golden ticket. There is no golden ticket in marketing. It is a sprint, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And you can't expect to see results all the way, right away. And it's very important to be patient as you're going through and building the strategy, especially when it comes to setting a cadence for content and doing things from that perspective. because again, you might not see the results right away, but it will build over time. So developing an action plan. Right now, if I were to do a poll of the room, I would bet from seeing this with hands up that the vast majority of people don't know who their best clients are, but they have a pretty good indication. A lot of people that I speak to, when they look at who their clients are, will say things like males or females between the ages of blank to blank, and there's a very big gap where people that wake up in the morning and go to bed at night. But when we're going through and we're looking at creating a marketing strategy, it's important to understand and plan for who you're speaking to, what you're delivering to them, when you're delivering it, and how they're going to consume it. So the first step that I would recommend is taking a deep dive into your database and understanding who your best clients are. Your best clients are the people that don't complain. We call them their A clients. Often we know them by name. They don't complain. They tell others about what it is that you're doing. They pay full price, and they'll often recommend people to come to you. So starting at the groundwork to be able to say that, who are these people? Why are they buying from me? And when are they buying from me? Is fundamental in knowing this. So if you don't have a database, or if you don't have a database, understanding and plotting who these people are before you go through and create a content strategy is paramount. But everybody has an audience. The vast majority of people today are on social media. One of the cool things that social media allows us to do is it allows us to go in and take a look at what people are doing, what likes they are, and provide real-time feedback as to how people are working with you and consuming your information. So now is the time, more so than ever, where people are going through and they're looking online more. We have, when you're forced to sit home, one of the things, and the stats are all showing it, is the vast majority of people are turning to social media to be entertained. They're looking for ways to entertain other folks. They're looking for ways to grow, and they're looking for ways to make informed decisions about their purchasing. So whether or not that's looking at your website for things like recipes, whether or not that's looking at your website for different key services that you offer, or looking at your social for this, you have a captive audience now more so than you've ever had before, and an opportunity to build meaningful relationships by getting your content in front of these people today. Now, one of the things that we take for granted is we all have this curse of knowledge that says what I'm doing isn't important to people. And we all have this fear right now, especially, that we don't necessarily want to reach out and talk to people because we're afraid. This is something that I've seen happen through some different businesses that I follow. This is something that I've talked to some business leaders about, is there's that inherent fear that I don't want to put my business out there because people aren't in the market to buy. I don't want to put myself out there because I don't want to come off as being a business that is trying to capitalize or seem greedy in a time where people are wanting and needing more. I'm here to tell you that we're all in the same boat together, and it's okay to put yourself out there, and it's okay to put out content, and it's okay to ask for a sale. Now, let me be very clear. It is one thing to be putting yourself out there and pushing only sales. That's not what I'm saying. This is a time to be able to go out there and build meaningful connections with people by providing value, by providing entertainment, and giving them resources, whether or not that be through hope or highlighting some things that they can do at home. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's your opportunity to build some of these connections in ways you might not have been able to before through the clutter of everyday life. It's very hard to connect with someone when we're running at full speed. But when we're told to slow down and stop, that gives us the opportunity to do things that maybe we didn't do before and to provide value to people that we might not have done before. So going back to what I said before, in not doing hard sales, but being okay, there's one of my favorite quotes is from John C. Maxwell and the book 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And the quote is, you have to touch a heart before you ask for the hand. One of the things, and one of my other business mentors, which is Gary Vaynerchuk, if anybody knows him, classifies this as jab, jab, right hook. And what that is in his vernacular is add value, ask for a sale. And in this case, again, I want to be clear, is we have the opportunity to kind of chat with people in a way that maybe we haven't before without being salesy, and being able to then ask for a sale down the road by providing people some of these core pillars. When we talk about pillars, there's a few things that you should take into consideration when you're building your social media strategy. Is sales, smiles, and community. This is how I define it. You could look at it some other way. You could go through and build it out as to what's relevant in your business. But for the sake of today's example, we're going to talk about utilizing these three pillars. So number one, things that are salesy. That's your product knowledge, that's sales information, that's manufacturing, that's pricing. These are things that most people know within their business, most people capitalize on. And so they're pretty straightforward. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But there's an opportunity to spend a lot more in smiles and community. Right now, if you take a look at what's happening in Waterloo region, and I don't know who is on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but there's a lot of cool stuff that we've seen come out of this pandemic in the ways that people are engaging. And I would classify those under the smiles and community, which are really what's going to hit home for people and help build loyalty for your brand because you're there for them in a time of need. One of the better examples that I can share is if anyone follows the Fat Sparrow group with Nick Beninger. I don't know if he was the one who came up with it, but Nick got together with some of the other chefs from Langdon Hall and some of the other local establishments and did a recipe day, which is something that really stood out to me in terms of being able to say that they went and provided a recipe list. They said, you can't come to our restaurants, we're not doing takeout, but here's some of the food that we offer. We're going to give you the recipe, we're going to give you the supplies, and at a certain time and date, connect with us and follow along as we cook together, which I found which got amazing traction from people and drove a lot of engagement for different restaurants. And we're seeing this over and over again. I don't know if anyone is following what Civilian Screen Printing is doing. They've got together with a whole whack of different local businesses and started producing t-shirts. I know what Maxwell's is doing in terms of saying that, hey, you can't come to shows here, but relive your favorite shows by buying posters or buying a t-shirt to remember those times. June 8, I know, is playing, who's a local musician, is playing a lot of different shows on weekends. So you can go on Facebook, you can donate as you want, but instead of going to the pub to see him, you can go and watch his shows through Facebook Live or Instagram Live, which are just some of the examples of ways that people are innovating and finding ways to engage with different folks to still build meaningful connections in extraordinary times. So when building your pillars and looking at your content strategy, we all have a curse of knowledge that happens. And that curse of knowledge is, and what I hear from clients a lot of times is, nobody cares about what it is that I do. And I argue with a lot of people that that's not the case. Everybody has a business case and information to share, but whether or not we realize that information is meaningful and how to put it out there is where people tend to struggle. So taking a step back to be able to say that, what is it that you do on a daily basis? One of the companies that I've worked with in the past was a dirt company, and we used to joke there's nothing sexy about dirt. Well, that might be true. There might not be nothing sexy about dirt as a whole, but people love what it is that the product brings for them. And so one of the strategies that we developed is taking a step back to say, what is that backyard DIY? What is the end result? What are people trying to achieve? How can we give them tips and tricks based on our expertise on knowing what soil is and knowing what mulch does? How can we provide value to people? And that's where we really started to see traction and build loyalty with people. There's a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek that many of us have heard of before. And if you've ever seen me speak before, you've known that I show the video a lot. And his saying, in which, is all starting with why, and that's how he became famous. If you've never seen the TED Talk, I highly recommend watching it. But what resonated for me with his TED Talk is people don't care what you do, they buy why you do it. And this becomes fundamental in a lot of what I've been trying to iterate anyway, in terms of we all have things and tips and tricks and information that we can share with people about why we do what we do, and how we do what we do, which resonates with people more than the sales call. And now more than ever, people are looking for this information. We'll talk about some key examples with this. If there's anybody that is in the hair business right now, there's a major opportunity to go through and provide DIY examples, and I'll be the first one to sign up, as I need a haircut desperately. I would never wear a hat as part of a presentation, but we're all in the same boat, I believe. So when we take a look at where this content exists and what to do with your content and why we do it, a lot of people take it as, we do it as a necessary evil, or we do it because that's what everybody says you have to do, without necessarily believing in it. There's some cool strategies and some things to really think about and consider when you're putting out social media. And the number one thing is, this is where people are consuming information today, more so than anywhere else. And the stats go to show that people's buying decisions now are completely different than the way that they used to be. And people are doing their homework more now online before ever coming into a store, making a phone call. And the vast majority of people actually have a purchasing decision made before reaching out to your company. It's your opportunity to convert them. And this is why social media and analytics come very much into play. And so with social media, there's a lot of people, as I said, that view it as a necessary evil. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of people is that, okay, I'm doing all this stuff, but I don't know what it actually means and translates into my business. So if you're not tracking and measuring and testing what is happening with your social media, how it's working for you, how your engagement is being done, and more importantly, what that means in terms of website traffic and hits and calls, of course you're going to feel that way. But there's an opportunity in terms of taking a step back now and utilizing some of this time to say that, maybe you don't have Google Analytics installed on your website. If you don't, I highly, highly recommend you do this like tomorrow, if not later today. But setting some of these processes in place and spending some time to educate yourself in terms of what this means, how it works. And there's a lot of great resources that we'll share after for you with some of these tips and tricks to make better informed decisions for yourself to help drive sales and revenue growth. Setting the plan, going back to what I prefaced before, and sort of how I started off this presentation, going back and setting a plan in terms of setting a social media calendar is one of the things that, if you're not doing today and you haven't done, there's a lot of resources out there for you to take advantage of, which I'll share. There's some free ones from HubSpot, but it's important to know your cadence. So we talked about your pillars of your audience, but now is the time to be able to set a plan. Being in seasonal businesses, getting back, and when the economy starts to open, we're slowly but surely going to be more and more time starved, and going back to that proverbial rat race, if you will, of everyday life. But now is the opportunity to kind of take a step back before we take a step forward. The opportunity that we have in front of us is to be able to build a content calendar and plan for the weeks and months ahead, to be able to say that once things do get a little bit busier, I now have a strategy and plan in place to be able to do that. Not many people know this, but there's some tools out there, which Facebook, as an example, which owns Instagram. If you connect the two, there's free resources for you to be able to schedule all of your posts for weeks and months out without having to spend hours, in front of your computer every day or week doing this ad hoc. So one of the solutions that I share with people is to spend the majority of your time planning and less time implementing. So HubSpot, I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, they're one of the top resources for all things online marketing. They've got some great tools in terms of calendars, in terms of resources, in terms like your cadence and things like that, things that you should be considering when building out your content calendar and when to post, which works in conjunction with the Facebook autoscheduler or utilizing a tool like Hootsuite. For people who aren't familiar with Hootsuite, it's a cost-effective way to be able to manage hashtags, likes, mentions, and post across all your platforms. So building your calendar in advance to say that I know on Monday I'm going to post my sales, maybe Tuesday I'm going to post my smiles, maybe Thursday I'm going to post my community pieces. You can pre-can all of that information, all of those posts, build out all of your hashtags, use a tool for graphic design like Canva or things like that to get some great imagery, and then pre-plan everything so you can kind of fire and forget and go about your week. A lot of people that I talk to will say that they're doing it on a daily basis. I don't have time to be posting all the time. One of the things that I can recommend just from my own experience in managing social and marketing projects for a wide variety of size and scale of companies is that set your goals, set your time, and delegate your task. So you can be able to say that on Monday, I'm going to spend an hour and a half pre-populating my information based on my social calendar, and then I'm going to go through and implement or have the tools, the automated tools, go through and do this for me automatically. So you don't have to spend that time suck going through, and you can be back into building your business as you will. And so again, I'm going to kind of go through these things high level, and we'll get to the end pretty quick in terms of being able to say, I want to take your questions to get tactical on this, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'm sure people have heard before. But I want to spend more time figuring out how we can implement some of these things directly for you and give you some concrete examples as to what that might look like. So if you aren't typing in questions now and you do have some, make sure you get those over to Allison. The other thing that, when we talk about time and how to build meaningful relationship with your customers, we know that not all these transactions can happen online, but there's an opportunity to build testimonials and word of mouth with your clients now, where you might not have had before. One of the ways that, actually we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's some things that you can do in terms of figuring out, who are your A clients and what you should be posting about, by being able to pick up the phone and call them and ask them and read your testimonials and utilize things like Google reviews and your competition's reviews to help shape your strategy, as well as going through and building testimonials and online reviews from them yourself. So with that, I've got some stats on the screen here in saying that 81% of consumer purchases are influenced by friends and social media posts. 78% of those who are influenced by the posts or they follow on social media. So, I mean, there's a lot of different stats that are all here in terms of, you know, why online is important, why people are looking for reviews, going back to what I was talking about with people making informed decisions before they actually call and purchase from you. Sorry, I'm gonna skip ahead. But we have an opportunity to call and ask people what's important to them. So I don't know if anyone's ever done this before, but one of the tools that I've used quite successfully over my career is doing something that's called a what is right call. Going back to what I mentioned before, is there's a lot of people out there that can't necessarily engage with their audience through social media. There's groups like insurance, private wealth, or wealth management. These are industries that are typically and notoriously hard to find and to find people online and get interaction, because people don't want to talk about insurance. People don't necessarily want to talk about wealth management, especially in a public space. So one of the opportunities that are in front of us now, whether or not you have an online audience or you don't, is to be able to capitalize and call some people that you're close with, people that you know are out kind of in the market looking for information, but be able to call them and just check in. It's making the phone your friend. It's giving an opportunity to call and say, hey, we're here for you. We're not necessarily going to ask you to buy from us today. We're not going to try to sell you anything. We're just checking in to remind you that you're valuable to us, you mean something to us, and we want to let you know that we feel the love. And if there's anything we can do for you, we're happy to do it. So if you're looking for something to do, if you have time on your hands, but you're not too sure how to connect with your clients, this is a great way of being able to do it without coming off as salesy. It's a great way of being able to get a pulse from your clients. And I always recommend starting with the people that are your A-type clients right out of the gate, because these are the people that know you're going through a hard time. That's the one thing I want to circle back to is we're all in this together. There's a lot of businesses out there that are in the exact same boat as you. There's a lot of people that are at home the same way as you. So if you know that there's people out there that love your business, this is a great time to be able to call them and ask them for a review and tell them the story, to be able to say that, hey, you know, we're trying to build our presence online. We're spending time, we're struggling on as to how to connect with some people. I'm hoping you might be able to help out to give me that online review, or be able to give me a little bit of feedback as to what's going on, because we care about you as a client. And we're hoping that you might be able to care about us as a business and help us out that way. And the reason why this is so important is that the vast majority of people are always going to look for online reviews before making a purchase decision. I mean, I've had the stats on there for a little while, but essentially, if all things are equal between you and another business in terms of your product offering, and you have more reviews than the other person does, the stats show that you're going to get the business, the other businesses are going to lose. So we have an opportunity to kind of sit back now and build some of these systems and structures that we might not have been able to do before. And opportunities. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit in my presentation here. But what's going to happen now more than ever is the companies that pivot and change and adapt are going to be the ones that succeed versus the ones that aren't. When I talk about the opportunity, it's not just the opportunity to do things that you might not have done before. it's the opportunity to explore some things that are a little different and plan for your business in a meaningful way that you might not have been able to do previously. So with that, I mean, there's multiple tools that you can use in terms of taking a look at, building out your A-type client profiles, building out your schedule for your content and social media schedule, spending this time to be able to write blog posts and develop content that can be canned, developing your email content strategy, working with tools, as I said, like MailChimp or Facebook to be able to schedule and can this, freeing up your time down the road. But there's also some tools in terms of managing your database or cleaning up some of your client connection and client engagement strategies that you can sit back, or even diversifying your revenue streams. I love the ingenuity and that entrepreneurs bring. And I think that this pandemic is displaying it more so than anything, and exploring opportunities to generate revenue that you might not have seen before. I mean, in this presentation so far, I've talked about a few ways that people are doing this already. I talked about civilian screen printing and their t-shirts. I talked about Maxwell's, but we're also starting to see things that people are doing to expand on their product lines in terms of curbside pickup, in terms of online or local delivery. There's companies like Driver Seat that are out there, and they're going through and doing grocery delivery now. There's companies like Graffiti Market that are extending on some of their local marketplace pieces and going and now selling groceries from some of their suppliers. So there's an opportunity for you to kind of sit back within your business and realize that, maybe I'm deemed non-essential, or there's some things that are put on my plate, and some barriers on my plate, how I can't necessarily connect with people. But maybe there's an opportunity to go through and innovate a little bit to create new methodologies of selling, to create new service offerings for clients that maybe you didn't have before, or to build a virtual presence that's a little bit different. So some examples, virtual scavenger hunts. I mean, we'll talk about this in the tactical side of things, but now more so than ever, we have that time to kind of sit back and say, what's important to me, and how can I utilize and capitalize on things that maybe I haven't been doing before. In building behavior, the results will follow. So I want to say that, there's this presentation is kind of gone a little bit different than I had planned, in terms of being able to say there's no right or wrong answer in terms of what is specific, or magic wand that's going to be specific for your business as to what's right in the content calendar, what's right to post, how to engage, what social platform to use. But we have this ability to kind of build our behaviors now, and build our metrics and tracking, to be able to say that, we can measure and test. That's the beauty of online. But where people tend to get caught up is even getting started and building that behavior out of the gate. So I don't know how many people are solopreneurs. I don't know how many people are working with teams, but taking some time to build your strategy and build your behavior, capitalize and use some of the tools that we've talked about here to set out your strategy is that gift that we've all kind of been given. And I would highly recommend that, that you utilize and get started today. I mean, that's why they call it the present, is we now have this opportunity to connect and grow and hopefully make an impact for your business, while a lot of people are being told to slow down. I think I'm going to switch gears a little bit and open it up. I don't know, Allison, if you can jump in. Do you have any questions or anything that have come through? Because
I've got one question that's come through. So, and to everyone on the call, please feel free to type in your questions. So, I mean, in the situation that we're in, there's lots of business owners that may feel really overwhelmed with everything. And you had some really great information in your presentation, but what would you recommend as like a good first step in order to get started?
Yeah, I mean, this is first of all a great question, and the first step is to plan and understand why you're doing what you're doing. So for me, the first thing to be able to do is understand where you want to go, why you're going to do what you do, and then how you're going to communicate it. So going back to the who, what, when, and how, it's kind of working through it that way to be able to say that, you know, your first step is set a goal. Why are you going to go on social media? I tell people all the time, you know, maybe social media isn't right for you. So the first step is plan and understand what you want to do. So if that is to get likes are fine. Money is better. So the SMART goal strategy would say to go to A to B by C. So that's could be, as an example for your goal, is I want to do 20% growth in online revenue in the next 2 months. And then reverse engineer your content strategy to help fulfill that. So where to get started is to set a goal and get started. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So ideally, would a business's post-COVID plan as it relates to engaging with their customers be different than their pre-COVID plan?
Really good question as well. So my favorite business quote of all time, which I think is applicable to this, is actually by Mike Tyson. And it's everybody that goes into a fight has a plan until you get punched in the face the first time. And I think now that quote is more relevant than it's ever been before in terms of saying that, you know, pre-COVID, we all had this strategy in place, or a lot of people had this strategy in place, but we don't know what post-COVID is going to look like. So when we're setting your cadence and taking a look at your plans and everything, it's important to remain fluid and adapt as to the changing circumstances. And what I mean by that is, you know, we're hearing today, and I don't know if the news conference has happened yet, but Doug Ford was supposed to go through and talk about, you know, what the reopening of the economy might look like. That's where some of the gray areas are going to happen. I mean, based on everything that we're seeing and I'm listening to, is it's going to be a staged approach. And that staged approach should tie in directly with what your content strategy is and how it's going to work. For a prime example, it's, you know, we don't know when people are going to be coming back to your stores. But what we do know is that between now and then, there's a plethora of things that you can talk about. So some examples that, you know, I wanted to give is I understood that there might be some folks from the museum or the region or things like that. So it's looking for ways to, you know, whether or not it's a virtual scavenger hunt, is how can you bring your brick and mortar experience or your service experience to someone in a virtual way, so that when those restrictions are finally lightened and lessened, that you've already got and painted the picture as to what people can expect from your brand or expect from your service offering to allow them to engage with you then. So pre-COVID versus post-COVID, I think the only differentiator is the time when people are physically able to interact with you and how you're going to convey and produce your brand experience leading up to it. I don't know if I don't know if that helps, but it's a really good question.
Yeah, and the Premier did release the province's framework for reopening, and there is a 3-stage approach. The date for when that first stage is going to start is not clear at this point, as they're going to take their cue from the chief health officer, but each stage is going to last 2 to 4 weeks, so it's going to be a really gradual opening. So there is a document that the province has released that may help businesses in terms of creating their own plan for recovery.
And the unfortunate side of that is, without seeing what they've prescribed today, but understanding the direction that they were going in, is a lot of what would be deemed non-essential and luxury, or places where people gather, are going to be some of the last stuff to reopen. And depending on where you are within that cycle and where you fit within on that spectrum, rather, is really going to impact, when you might be able to see people in your locations again. I've worked with a wide cross section of different industries lately in terms of saying, how can we put in preventative measures to protect your staff, to protect your family, to protect your customers from potential infection. And there's a lot of people looking for it. But if you're in a brick and mortar store, or if you're in the entertainment or restaurant side, chances are those are going to be some of the last things to open. So finding these opportunities and creating your plans now are more paramount, so you can still continue to see some revenue, or when it is time to open, you have a group of people lined up waiting to welcome you back.
Okay, great. And I just one more question. So as we start looking at recovery and kind of the recovery that is going to happen, there has been some talk and speculation that perhaps there could be a second wave, and we don't know when or if that's going to hit and how significant it will be. But as businesses plan for that, would they have to have kind of a separate plan if there were a second wave of this, or would they kind of build that into the existing plan?
Again, really good question. And I think this is, there's two stories that I'm getting from a lot of the businesses that I've been working with. And I think the consistent through all of this is that business the way it was pre-COVID is not necessarily, I don't think we're going to see that anymore. I think things have fundamentally changed within the business landscape. And we're going to see, there's a lot of bad stuff happening to businesses right now. There's a lot of businesses that have been doing things for a long time, good businesses, bad businesses. Nobody's safe from this. But they're getting hit hard, and a lot of businesses aren't going to make it out of this. So this is the opportunity to be able to say that business as it was pre-COVID is not necessarily going to come back full circle for a while. And this has been a wake-up call for a lot of people out there that have been resisting some of the changes and doing things I hate to say the old-fashioned way because it's such an overused term, but it's scary to be able to, when I question people on some of their decisions and why they're doing what they're doing, when they say that, it's just the way that we've always done it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the way that we've always done it has fundamentally changed. So this opportunity to implement new practices for your business and take that step back and have a hard look at your business plan, at your revenue streams, at your marketing strategy, at your content calendar, how you're engaging with your customers today is more important than it ever has been before. And the big reason, I think it's been a wake-up call for a lot of people to be able to say that, we didn't necessarily see this coming, and how could you prepare for something like this, especially as a small business. Many folks don't have a disaster contingency plan. But wave one, wave two of COVID, business is not going to go back to the way it is. So implementing some of this stuff is not necessarily setting yourself up for success in the second wave. It's setting yourself up for success in what most people and I personally believe is going to be the new norm and way of doing business for a long time.
Okay, great, thanks. So those are all the questions that have come in. We did get one comment that came in that said, thanks, Kris, for the ideas. So that's great. I would like to thank you, Kris, for being with us today, and I appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise to help our business community through this difficult time. To those on the call, as I mentioned, you will be receiving a follow-up email with a link to the webinar. And I would encourage you to please visit our website for more information on the upcoming webinars that we have. And thanks again for everyone for joining us.
And I will go through and I'll be a little bit concrete in the information I provide to Allison and the team that comes out. I know this is my first webinar and it was a little bit all over the place, so I appreciate your attendance and patience as we went through it. And if you took one thing away from it, I very much, you know, I'm grateful for that. So I'll provide some of the tools and some of the things that I referenced to Allison and the team, and they'll make sure to get that out to you. So thank you guys very much.
That's great. Thanks, Kris.